Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Dark Season 2, Episode 5. It is called Lost and Found. So, full spoilers for the episode, of course, as always. Where to begin with this? I feel like these episodes are getting more complex, not in the sense where they're getting more confusing in terms of what it's doing with the time travel, just in the sense that we were in different time periods. A lot more pieces going on, a lot more people involved, and a lot more time periods at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's funny because a couple episodes ago you said, "Oh, this season felt like everything was a bit more connected, a bit closer together, a bit more focused than season one was in that regard." And then this episode came along and it was the most scattershot thing yet.
Yeah. I mean, it's setting up a lot of pieces for
Yeah,
what we're about to do next, and we kind of end the episode in a place with Jonas, where because we're 2 days from the apocalypse.
yeah.
But what's interesting is at the end of the episode, young Jonas in 20s, after talking with Adam, who talks about each cycle being a little bit different, kind of like we were speculating that every single time it cycles, there are some differences, that it's kind of advancing slowly, You can almost snowballing in a weird way, where it's very similar, but every single time it's just a little bit of a different layer.
Yeah.
So he presents him this loophole essentially, or he kind of inspires young Jonas to think of it himself. It's like, when is the beginning? That was a question that was asked last episode or 2 episodes ago. Is when is the beginning of the loop essentially? And Jonas's answer rang a bit false to me, and not so much that I understand why he's saying this, because from his perspective, everything was normal and fine until his father committed suicide, and then everything's kind of unraveled from there. But I don't necessarily see how that is the start of a loop or a start of anything. However, Adam, ancient Jonas, is like, sure, and then introduces him to a god particle, which, from the sounds of it, the way he phrased it, talking about this as being the end of the knot, because he kept talking about the time loop as a knot, everything's connected. And the way he phrased it made it sound like to me that this is the big thing that's different about the cycle of him. The difference between when he met older Jonas or Adam when he was that age is that it didn't sound to me like Adam at that time when he met him had this particle, had this his own.
What's funny is I disagree.
Okay.
I think he did, and there's still just a hope that this time things have changed enough that he'll be able to use it correctly.
Oh no, I mean, don't get me wrong. Everything I'm saying, he could be playing him, but I get just the intention of what he's saying to young Jonas. I think the implication that he's trying to part with him is that this is different now because we have this time machine now that you can jump in and go to anywhere with no 33-year restriction. Might we add? He was very clear about that. So Jonas is going to right before his father committed suicide in 2019. I did not expect to be going there timeline wise, but mainly just because this show has been so strict about its 33-year thing, and even though they don't have to be 33 years apart, I mean, admittedly, middle-aged Jonas may not necessarily be 33 years, but he did confirm that he's 66 years older than young Jonas. So I'm going to take a stab and say that middle one's 33 years between them.
Most likely, the fact that he's now traveling to a non-33-year jump means theoretically he doesn't have to be, and it could just sync up somewhere along the line.
Why does that either prove it or disprove it?
That's my point. It leaves it still open either way. The fact that he's traveling to a point, young Jonas is traveling to a point that is not a 33-year jump, right? So therefore, just because now he's done it once, the stranger may not be 33 years ahead.
Why does that change anything? Why does that change what the gap might be in his age? Even if he was always jumping by 33 years, it has nothing to do with what age he is as a stranger. Like that had nothing to do with what age he could be before. That was the argument last episode, is that he can be any age, because if he's been jumping around, like he could have been jumping around for 10 years, or he could be jumping around for 50 years. Well, not 50, he's not that old.
No, you're right. It probably is 33 years old just because of the cycle.
What's the thing? I don't think there's a reason why he's those exact ages. I think it's just a thematic thing to tie him to all the other rules of the show. Yeah. It doesn't need to be. There's no reason why, because Jonas / Adam, the way he's been jumping around, doesn't follow the rules that everything else does, especially since we have time machines that don't obey this 33-year rule, which we know this one at the start at least doesn't. And the one at the end doesn't for sure as well, because that sent him back 100 and something years, into the past. So because of that, he could be any age. That was the argument last episode. It's the argument in this episode. I'm taking him being 66 years older as confirmation. Yeah, he's at these 3 stages in his life to match every other character that we see in those 3 stages.
All this talking of knots and unraveling and finding the start surprised me slightly that they never just went the route of, okay, well, we just cut the knot, right? The Gordian knot thing of just that's the that old story of Alexander the Great. Just cut the knot, right? Forget about it. Don't bother trying to unravel it. Just slice right through it and just destroy the whole thing. I'm surprised that was never brought up here, because it felt like a really prime concept.
I mean, they might get to that eventually. I mean, maybe the reason why no one brings it up is because we don't want to destroy everything. I mean, that's the simplest explanation I've got for that. Also, just to win an argument from last episode, like 50 of the photos in that collage all had those frames, so shut it.
Sure, okay.
You were like, oh, Claudia's got a special frame. Maybe she's more important than everyone else. I was looking. So you get the 4 main families in the middle. Around the edge, the doors, all of the photos and the edges are all the ones like Claudia. It's all those types of frames.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, take the points. So Jonas talks to Adam, and it's actually kind of a downbeat plot line until the end of the episode, where he's like, "Okay, you got to try and save your father, stop your father from committing suicide," which means that Mikkel will never go back, and therefore he'll never exist, and he will exist, but he.
No, I understand why they consider this the start of the knot. Whereas, he won't exist to do everything else, but no one else will go into the past. It just won't happen if he doesn't kill himself.
Of course, but that's what I'm saying, is that Mikkel will never go back in the past, so Michael will never come to existence, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
So because of that, and I love that Adam turns around and says, and not everyone else will get to live except us. Martha will get to live. And I like that.
It's all about Martha.
Like, he knows it's about Martha, because he remembers, he understands this. And hell, middle-aged Jonas creepily going to Martha's bed. And I mean, leaving the pendant's fine, but just the way he sits in the bed and just sort of sits there for a minute, I'm like, this is getting to creepy town. And not to mention the dream.
Dreams.
Yeah, he has the dream at the start where he turns into older Jonas. And his scars on his back, because it's young Jonas at first, and he still has the scars, and I was like, oh, what's that implying? But then he turns into older Jonas, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, honestly, that in that dream, there's the effect of the black particle stuff kind of coming out of the stomach
of Martha.
Yeah, it's one of the few times that I thought the effect looked a bit weak.
So Martha's the mother of the God particle. Can we just talk about? Can we just point that out?
Told you Martha was the mother of everyone.
That's not everyone. That's everything.
Everyone is everything.
Yeah, but she's the mother of all matter.
They're included in that.
Oh dear. So. No, very interesting, and it does make me think that Martha is going to end up being very important, and that something with Martha and Jonas is like, I am starting to think that Jonas and Martha are going to have a child, and I don't know who this child's going to end up being, but that opening scene just made me go, you know what, this is going to happen, and they're going to have a kid.
Maybe Martha is Charlotte's mother.
We'll get to that. Don't jump to that plot. We're not done, right? Jesus.
To be fair, I would have said that last episode either way.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't guess that it's Martha.
No, but it could be.
I mean, I guess we can't jump to that plot though. So Charlotte asks Jonas for some information, who's Noah, who's my grandfather, and we do find out. Now, this doesn't exonerate me, but I do want to point out the irony that I mistakenly didn't remember that Tannhaus was her grandfather, and then it turns out this episode that he's not really her grandfather. I just want to point that out.
That doesn't make it any better. That you just forgot the connection.
I know. I'm just saying it's funny. It's funny that it turned out that he's not really her grandmother.
Well, I would hope not. I hope he's not a grandmother.
So grandfather, you know what I meant. So he's like, no, he was just a pawn. He built the time machine. He shows her the time machine, and she ends up going back to the shop. She finds the blueprints, and this is in walks Noah. And Noah, confirms that he's her father, which was something obviously I think it was one of the more obvious sort of things we could have guessed last episode.
Yeah.
And he confirms that, but very notably, because that's the other thing. Charlotte asked Jonas, "Do you know who my parents are?" And at the time, I thought in that scene, I didn't think she was asking because she didn't know. I thought she was asking because she was about to tell him something like important about who her parents were. Like I thought she was about to tell him something good, and it cut away and we didn't get to see it. But then when we see this scene with Noah, it becomes very clear that she didn't know who her parents were, and she's still begging to know who her mother is. And Noah says she loved you. She still does.
Which obviously tells us she's still alive in
And
at least one other time
yes,
period.
and at least one time period. I mean, what time period that is open.
Right, that for all we know, she's just chilling in the in the the 1920s.
Is Elizabeth Charlotte's mother?
Why not?
Is she her own grandmother? I've been saying it's going to happen. Someone's going to be their own grandparent.
Yeah, I know.
And because this is the interesting thing. We were debating last episode about what Noah was reacting to on the pages, and we still don't quite know. He gives the diary to Charlotte, but what's interesting to me in this scene is that I think you could read it a couple of ways. Where he said, because he says, "Oh, I have to stop Adam." First and foremost, Noah's now against Adam, and he's like, "I can't change what you're going to think of me because of what I've done." Because Charlotte's like, "You killed the children." Jonas told me that,
and he's like, "Yeah, I did, but in the hopes that we were going to undo it all anyway."
Yeah. The idea that eventually that none of it would have to happen, which kind of paints him as this kind of dark but necessary figure potentially, if this is where we go with it.
It makes them all inherently slightly less evil. That all the evil things they're doing, they think are going to be undone, right? So that they don't see it necessarily as actually killing them. They kind of see it as, okay, well, by the time this is done, they're all going to be alive.
Well,
anyway.
I think more importantly on a personal level, it's not just that they're going to be undone; it's that they're not going to even know they've done it. Because if they fix things, then they're never going to go do these things, and they're never going to have to live with this fact. Because we see the photo of him and young, as a baby, Charlotte as a baby, and he looks like a happy father. It looks like a normal person for a change. Maybe we get this version of Noah at the end of the show.
So,
but anyway, so his reaction.
Can I just ask a question about the ages here between them? So, obviously, we're fairly sure Noah was born in the 1920s, right? That's his original time period where we saw the young version of him.
Yeah, he'd be born like 1905 or something like that, presumably.
Yeah. So when he had Charlotte, he would have been in the 50s period.
We see that he is the active priest in the 50s. We've seen that before.
Yeah.
He's living there as a man, if you will.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, does that track with Charlotte's age?
Charlotte, well, no, because she would be born. She's a kid in the 80s, so she would have been born in like, so she was like 16 and 86, so she'd be about 1970-ish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm just trying to line this up in my head as to.
Well, see, there's two possibilities here. Is that one, at some point before he started doing all this stuff, Noah did settle down in a time period, and Charlotte's mother's from that time period, and they had her in 1970, or there was time travel shenanigans going on all the time, and Charlotte, regardless of when she was born, was eventually dropped off in that time period and
That's
grew up
what
there.
I was just thinking. Like, what was she born in a different one and then dropped somewhere else? Because the ages would line up with that as a reasonable possibility. I'd have thought.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because how long does the cycle last? Like, like how much time do we get to live through these decades before it's reset again?
That's true. And worth noting, Noah does say, she was taken away from him. Right? He didn't choose to leave her in a time period.
No.
Someone took her.
Yeah, it was funny because until he said the mother was still alive, but when he says, you were both taken from me, it sounded like he was talking about death. It sounded like someone saying, "Oh, you were taken from me," as in you were in a car accident or something like that, right? Obviously, Charlotte wasn't, but that's the way the phrasing felt to me. And then,
but when that's recontextualized, that the wife's alive as well, then he can't have meant that.
Yeah. Like, is it a case of like the wife ran away from him, kind of like Tronte's mother did in the
Maybe.
50s. Is it kind of a scenario like that, or did someone else do it? And I do wonder though, is it literally like it's taken away? Because I think if you take that too much at face value, it sounds like kidnap. I would argue that it's more like they were convinced to leave him. You know, someone convinced his wife that they shouldn't be with him, or because he was doing bad things. You know,
Yeah.
Because of the way he said that, you know, if we never do this, then you won't be taken from me. It makes it sound like he will never cause that to happen because he won't be who he is, kind of thing.
Possibly. The only other thing I can think of though is when he says that is, okay, if none of this happens, there won't be a traveler to come and take you away from me.
Oh, sure.
There won't be the time travel.
Sure. That's it. Well, yeah, that's the thing though. That would imply that he did have Charlotte way back in because if there's no time travel at all, and his original time period is you know, back in the 20s, which it may not be. I mean, he could have went back there from
It might
there.
not be. No, admittedly, that's true.
But that would mean Charlotte would have to be born in 1930, 1935, something in that range.
Yeah.
You know, just sort of roughly gauging what age he might have been at when she was born.
No, I agree.
So that would suggest that he would meet his wife or girlfriend or whatever, and have her in that time period, and they would be happy together and never move anywhere. I don't necessarily think he looks like he's in that time period in that photo though. That looked like it could be, you know, probably closer to what we said, like 70s, 80s. Like it was in like a polo shirt kind of thing. It looked a bit more, you know, that didn't look dull and like grey enough for the 20s.
No, it's true.
But I don't know. It's interesting. But his reaction though, when he's talking about like what's going to happen in a few days, at one point it almost sounded like to me that he didn't always know that Charlotte was his daughter. Like he obviously had a daughter that was taken from him, but he didn't necessarily always know that this person Charlotte in this time period was his daughter.
I agree, because he says, you know, all this time you were right here.
Yeah.
And obviously he's been back and forth. We've seen him in 2019, 2020.
And he says
constantly.
he says that Adam knew all along, and he's kept this from him. And what's interesting to me about that is because before he said that, I was thinking about, you know, season 1 when he went to Elizabeth and he had that weird meeting with her, and I thought to myself, oh, that's why he never like kidnapped Elizabeth or hurt her, because this is his granddaughter and he cares about her. But that means he has to know who Charlotte is, which might suggest even that the Noah who saw Elizabeth in season 1 was actually from later in Noah's life than the one that we've been seeing most of the time.
Oh, that's possible. Yeah.
So that's an interesting idea, especially since we now know for sure there's at least one form of time travel that doesn't have to restrict to the 33-year cycle.
Yeah.
So that's
because mostly they're chronological, based on, you know, at least to them, because of the 33 years running parallel.
Yeah.
So it's only people who travel through the God particle that can kind of break that at the moment.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, I could almost see a scene like either the end of this, even towards the end of the show, where like the final stage of Noah goes into the God particle and has this meeting. We finally get to see the conversation he had with Elizabeth, kind of thing. And does he know how to do sign language, for example? Because we've not seen that. Like maybe that's something like.
No, maybe can she read lips?
Well, I don't think we've seen her do it yet, but I mean, maybe she can.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I was asking. I wasn't sure.
But very, very interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
So it does seem like something bad's about to happen to Charlotte in these last couple of days, but I think it's actually I think when he looked at that page, that was him learning that Charlotte was the daughter that he's been missing. That's what it felt like to me. And that backs up the reaction that we're kind of debating last episode about how emotionally intense it was. Like it was. You know,
yeah, definitely. We weren't sure if he was learning something about her or if she was going to do something. We weren't sure the exact thing, but we definitely felt the emotion for sure.
Yeah, and presumably it also means that Charlotte's not her original name.
No,
certainly implies that. And I'd also be very curious to see is how did Tannhaus come to be her guardian? Like who brought her to him?
Her off?
Yeah.
At this point, I'm suspecting Jonas because, no, it's he knew all along, right? So if he knew, he might be the one that dropped her off. That's prime suspect, at least right now for me.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because that's why he would even know that if it said on the page, Jonas drops off who became Charlotte in 1970 or whatever.
Yeah,
At the clock shop.
exactly.
There you go. There's your answer. And what's interesting though is again just come back to Jonas and the Adam stuff is like, is this young Jonas going to become this Adam, or are we getting into this final cycle where because maybe the reason why we're watching this version of Jonas in this cycle is because he's the one that does break things and stops it from happening. Maybe the young Jonas we're looking at will never actually become old Jonas if he succeeds.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Not that I think we're going to have that.
At that point is, what the hell is season 3?
Well, that's the thing though. I'm saying that, but I don't necessarily think that's going to happen by the end of this season. Like, I feel like that's end of show.
Right,
kind of.
and this season's been so consistent in counting down towards this, the end of this cycle. It's been, every episode has been one day.
I do think we're going to be shaking up the rules next season. I wouldn't surprise me if like the 33-year thing goes out the window entirely for season 3.
But it's possible, yeah.
Based on whatever happens, and
it's really interesting. We talked about the building of the cycle, but obviously for Adam that is even more physical in terms of technology. The chair to the briefcase to the future apocalypse generator to the god particle they built themselves.
Yeah, that's what's really interesting to me is because we were talking last season. I remember talking about like, okay, like, because we were speculating that. All right, so you can go through the bridge, but it seems like the bad guys, because at the time we didn't know who it was, we were like, the bad guys are using this chair and doing these experiments to try and figure out another way to travel. And then this season, we've got the working time machine, and then we have the God particle. And, it's interesting to me that we're seeing all this stuff, but there's actually like a linear like progression through the cycles in this all this technology. Like, it started with just the one, and then they've been working on it and changing it.
And it's worth noting, Adam says, that's not the final thing either. There's still something more to come after this device that's powering this God particle.
Yeah.
So he's got something bigger there, planned.
Yeah, and actually, I kind of like to, again, it's kind of a almost cheesy kind of way to phrase it to make it fit with the 33-year thing, but he talks about people living 3 lives. And he says, you live your life that ends when you lose your
death of naivety, death of innocence,
and then actual death
of yourself. Yeah.
Right? Which neatly puts us into young Jonas, middle-aged, and then Adam, right?
So naivety with young Jonas is very clear, discovering, all this, right? And becoming hardened to it. Begs the question, what is the stranger going to do to lose his innocence?
I think it's in 2 days' time.
I do as well.
I think he's going to try and fix things, but make it worse again. He's going to cause the apocalypse. It's going to be him.
Yeah.
That would be my gut feeling right now. And that's the other thing with Adam. I'm like how honest is he being? Is he giving false hope because he knows that he has to get to this point again, so he just wants him to go through the beats, or does he actually hope that he changes things? Does Adam actually want to believe that Jonas can change things?
Yeah, I genuinely don't know with Adam, his motivations. I did love their conversation, on the sofas, where he's like talking about he's had this conversation before from the other side of things, going, "Hey, I never understood how I could possibly become that, and I spend the rest of my life wondering how and why, and then but now here I am, and I get it."
Yeah, he also says at one point where he deliberately says that I'm answering something differently, because he gets to the point where it's like, I remember all the answers, so now I'm at a point where I get to answer this next thing differently, and that's kind of the implication that they've built this machine for the first time, that this is the first time they've had this machine specifically.
Yeah.
Because that's what it kind of leads into. So I am so excited to get some Back to the Future Part 2 style. Not that we got a whole lot of Michael's suicide and what happened right before it, but we're going to see a lot of characters again in roughly present day time that we've not seen in present day for a while.
Yeah, because that was one of the opening scenes of the show, right?
It was the very opening scene.
It was the very opening scene. Okay, yeah. I didn't rewatch it before.
Outside of maybe a bit of narration or something like that, but that was the first real scene.
Okay. I thought it was right at the start. So it's fascinating to go, okay, sure, that was the start of our journey, right? But they see it as the start of their journey. They're not as well, or at least Jonas does. Whether or not he's right in thinking that is a different question. Just because Adam agrees that this is the case doesn't mean they're right in it either way.
That's exactly what I said. He guesses what the start is, but I'm not so sure like that tracks. But at the same time, it's kind of neat.
There's a logic to their argument, isn't there?
But it's kind of neat for us as the audience because we came in at the same time as Jonas believes it started. That's where we started watching as well. So it makes sense to make the main character be the one. If Jonas is the closest thing we have to a main character, it's very much an ensemble, obviously. But if he's the closest thing we have to a main character, then the idea that his story is the most important, and that's the one that we have central to as the backbone of the show. But also the idea that if this is the last cycle we're getting into, and he is going to break it, he's going to break the knot, as it were, or untie it, however you want to phrase it.
Yeah.
Then it makes sense that that's the version we were watching because we need to see the end of the story, right? So whatever the end of the story is, if the end of the story is that they destroy everything, we have this really somber ending where there's just nothing but blackness, and it's like, oh well, reality's screwed. Then that's one ending. I doubt it will be that, but
I mean, it's possible that one ending is tough shit. Even no matter what we do, the cycle can't be broken. It's just going to loop forever. That is a potential ending.
It could be. Part of me though, like that show is so, pardon the pun, dark. Like as it goes throughout the time, I feel like the ending, even if it sort of does have the ending where it's like the cycle can never truly be broken, I still feel like it's going to be kind of optimistic about how it presents it. Like, okay, the cycle's not been broken this try, but things have changed again. And,
maybe one day
it can be. Like, I could see it having like an optimistic kind of side to it. But at the same time, it's almost futile to talk about any of this shit because we've got a whole season 3 and we have no idea how the rules are going to shake up. We don't know what's going to happen when this apocalypse happens and things get crazy.
No.
And I'm convinced they're going to get crazy. Like, I'm sure of it.
Right there with you.
Because last episode we went on for ages about someone versus themselves and like the new belief versus the old belief, but after this episode I'm not entirely even sure that's exactly what's going on either, because now we have this point where even Adam seems like he might want to end everything. He's just like, this is the greater good. He has to do all this to make it work.
Yeah, he's maybe not as obviously villainous as we had just expected, right?
Yeah. Even Noah,
like I say, we have ascribed to them that they are evil because they killed kids and all that. But if their aim is to make sure it doesn't happen, are they evil for doing that?
But what's interesting though is Noah now believes that Adam has to be stopped,
which means perpetuating the cycle.
Yeah. So is Noah just succumbing with emotion because he's personally affected, and that's why he's going to fight back, which will actually help continue the cycle? Or is it a case of we don't know which one of them's actually right? Which one actually is essentially going to get the correct result to save everything?
I love the idea that this happens every goddamn time, and Noah's always the one that screws it up and continues the cycle for them.
Or or maybe maybe the final pages of the book, maybe that reveals to Noah that like Adam is a heel, like he is a bad guy, like he's pretending to us that he wants to fix everything, but his goals are actually different than that.
Yeah, I'm not sure he'd necessarily believe that, given who wrote it. He'd probably just view it as, of course, she thought it was, that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it depends, like how much of it could be, considered proof, depending on what she's written. Like, if it's like fair, this fact, this date, this,
yeah,
whatever. Because there was diagrams and all sorts of things in there.
There was, yeah.
So no, very interesting. So that is that. Let's talk about Ulrich Inez, who makes a bit of a jailbreak.
It's a lot of fun, this, isn't it?
I love the guy. Like, that Reagan's a great guy. I recorded his speech on VHS. So he's very excited about it. Yeah, whack. And Ulrich gets out and he goes to see Mikkel, which is a great scene. Obviously, like he's been waiting for 33 years, as he even says at one point, and he kind of breaks down. And Mikkel, it doesn't take long, and I love that they actually referenced episode 1 when he turns over the glass, because it's the magic trick that Mikkel does at breakfast on that day. It's because it's that night he disappears, actually. So I mean, it's the day he disappeared. He did this.
Yeah, it was one of the last conversations they had. Right?
Yeah, so presumably that's why it sticks so well in Ulrich's mind, because it's like the important one. It's the last time he saw his son. And he gets who he is. And it's kind of this sweet moment, and they're on their way back to the cave, but Unfortunately, Innes calls Egon. Egon makes a guess that he's going towards the cave, and they stop him once again. And this is the second time in the 50s. Egon, stops him from going in the cave when he tries to go home, and again here in the 80s, he does it again.
I was so concerned because we know Egon is dying tomorrow, right?
Yeah, tomorrow now. Yeah.
And then we learn, oh no, there was suspicious circumstances. So it's not just the cancer.
Yeah, Ulrich might kill him, and this is the sad part is I think Egon's a really good guy. I think the show's done a great job is selling Egon as a very stand-up dude.
It has, and Ulrich's not a bad guy.
No, he's not, but you understand why he wants to kill him.
Absolutely.
Egon has trapped him in a different time period, unknowingly to him, but he's trapped him in an unknown time period for 33 years and stopped him then, even at that point, of the shred of hope that he might get home with his son.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the final ironic twist is that as he's been driven back to the hospital, he passes some kids standing by the side of the road, and I was laughing, and not in like in a very sort of dark way where I was like, oh, this is poor. It's a
sad irony, isn't it?
Yeah, poor Ulrich. So they left. The kids left Bartos in the cave overnight. They come back. Obviously, he's been there. He's not had anything to eat or drink, and he's like, "Well, tell us what this is." And he's like, "I can't. I was told not to." And you wouldn't believe me anyway. And then they're like, well, we'll leave you for an holiday then and see how it goes. So he just yells out, it's a time machine. It's a time machine, damn it. And they don't really believe him, but Martha's just willing to sort of go along with it. And she's like,
all right then, just how it works.
So sure enough, he turns out, which actually begged the question to me is, how many trips do you get on one vial of the fuel? Because this proves that they don't have to refuel it every jump. They will keep running.
Yeah.
Maybe until the vial runs out, as long as there's still liquid in there, maybe it'll still go. It's just like a car tank.
It's such a minuscule amount. Maybe there's only ever the one vial. It just barely goes down. Because have we seen them refuel it?
Yeah, because we've seen Claudia refill it before she used it a couple episodes ago, and we saw Jonas have to steal some out of the barrels to fuel it. And then season one,
it could last quite a while though.
Yeah, it could be more like a car than we think, because we're thinking DeLorean, you have to get the plutonium every time you want to travel. But it could be just more like a car tank where it's like, no, I'll get you X number of mileage. And, just go from there. So he takes them back to the 80s. And not just too much in the 80s, but I did like how this was played in the sense that when they came out, they're like, hey, that chair that's always sitting there is not there. And it's not enough to convince them they've actually travelled in time, but they do notice some differences and like, okay, this is weird, right? Let's continue on. And it's not until they get to the road and they see the police cars go by and they see the flyers up at the bus stop. It's like, what was the band? I can't remember the band now, but it was like the tour 1987, and then the police cars going by, and poor Ulrich in the car going, "Those are my children," which I felt really sad about because it just made him sound more crazy. Because now he thinks other kids are his kids, because to them in the car it's like he thinks everyone's his kid now, apparently.
It's just making it look worse for him, but he's right, and it's just, like I say, it's that sad irony.
Which, by the way, can I just Mikkel? You couldn't have stuck up for him a little bit and said, no, he's my dad, or something. Well, I'm not to believe you is another question, but he doesn't say anything. He just...
No, he doesn't say a word, does he?
No, and then Innes, who we thought seemed nice enough last season, all this pill stuff and drugging him to make him sleep. It's starting to feel a little bit, I don't know.
Yeah, no wonder he killed himself.
I wonder if going back in time and being separated from his family also had something to do with that. And speaking of his family, before the kids came to the 80s, Katharina tries to tell them. She's got the photograph and she's going to show them.
And they're having none of it.
Nah, Martha hits her even at one point, and it's she's kind of made her own bed here, but it's just a really bad place. They're not trusting each other. But Katharina does go over to Hannah's and wants to see Jonas and wants to be taken to Mikkel. But he's not there. He sort of snuck off to do his work for the day with Charlotte and various other things. And they have this scene which kind of boils down to, Hannah, I mean, you slept with both my husband and my son. You always wanted things that were mine.
The son seems a little unfair, given it's not like she knew.
She didn't, but at the same time, I can't blame her for making that observation.
No,
I can't blame it. Which is interesting because when Jonas comes back, he brings up the affair and he's like, "Did you even love Dad? If you could pick between Dad and Ulrich right now, what would you pick?" And Hannah, and maybe a moment of honesty, just kind of agrees that she kind of ruined everything. And that's kind of as far as we've gotten with her as of yet. But
yeah.
Certainly intriguing to see how that character sort of story plays out. But of course, the policeman comes over, and speaks to Hannah. She missed her appointment, and he's surprised to see Katharina there because he's heard about the affair. But they sit down, and he asks why Alexander's still paying her, even though she's not doing any physical therapy. And she's like, "Well, we're friends. He helps me out.
He's a nice guy, After all the shit I've been through, he's just helping me while I get back on my feet."
Yeah, he's thinking prostitution, right, or an affair.
Oh, that or she's got some secrets.
Yeah. I'm because I think his mind's jumping to there's either an affair or he's just straight up paying her for sex and not telling her life about it.
He uses the word, there must be a service in return.
Yeah, there was that word.
The service could be. He could also be thinking, the service could be, like a keeping secrets. It could be a blackmail scenario.
Well, that's what it is.
Well, yeah, but he could be thinking that as well. Is what I mean. His wording doesn't necessarily rule that out for me.
He could be, but I mean, honestly, he's suspecting of everyone though at this point. That
he is. Yeah.
I just I'm not convinced he has anything.
Oh no, he definitely doesn't have anything concrete on anyone.
Unless he turns out to secretly be someone from the past or the future or something, and he's just playing the game. But why would he be wasting his time doing all this if that's who he is?
Yeah, no, I don't.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
I am actually really interested to see what becomes at the point of this plot because it seems so separate to everything else in the show right now.
It does, and it doesn't. It's not bogging it down because they're not spending that much time on it per episode. It's this through line of there's someone investigating everything who's on the outside,
right? But that must have a purpose. It must be going somewhere. Otherwise, why are we doing this? And I genuinely, it's one of the few plots where I don't even have any idea where it's going. I couldn't even begin to predict what it's for.
It's not a bad thing necessarily.
No, it's not.
They could wow us with this. I don't know. So, yeah. Did I miss anything that middle-aged Jonas had done? See Charlotte, goes to Martha's bed and leaves the pendant, which she sees at the end of the episode and cries. Which notably, when Bartos says that Noah said that Jonas is coming back, Martha, her ears perk right up. She's like, "Wait, what? Jonas is coming back? What?" So I'll be interested to see if they run into each other at any point. I honestly, part of me just can't wait because I was excited last episode for having middle-aged Jonas with Hannah, with Peter and Charlotte in the room together. Part of me cannot wait until just everyone's in a room. I want the whole, all of Katharina's family in a room with them. I want everyone there. Just
all three versions of some people.
Yeah. I want them all in a room, and I want them all to deal with this shit because it's great. Yeah. I want it. I want it so bad. All right, who have we not talked about? Claudia tells her father to move in with him, thinking this might avoid the murder, essentially.
Yes.
Of course, I suspect. And do you know what I actually relate about this scene? It's not even a time travel or sci-fi thing. I love the acting on him when he reacts to this.
It's like, oh, you're acting like I'm on my deathbed.
Well, no, it wasn't so much that. It was the smile. When she offers it, it was just kind of like he's not felt this much love in a long time, and it felt really genuine from Egon, which made me feel really bad later when Ulrich's threatening to kill him.
Yeah, they seem to have a really strange relationship right now at this point because obviously we've seen how close they were, in the past. And when when she comes in, she says, "Oh, you haven't been around here in quite a while." It feels like maybe they're not seeing each other that much.
And notably, this is the only time that they've ever brought up her mother in this time period. He says, "I'm proud of all your achievements, and your mother would be too." And it's kind of a moment,
Yeah.
So clearly, I think the mother, and however she died,
Yes.
or ran away potentially, but I assume died.
Yeah, it's tough to say because I would have assumed died based off here. But given that we did have, Claudia before say, "Oh no, you'll make my mother happy."
Well, that's exactly why I think it's definitely death. Because I think if she did run away with her, then why would she say that? Okay, you did run away, you were happy.
Just to her, it's like you will. It's that Claudia's past, but she's saying it as you will make her happy.
Oh, so you're saying it as a definite. She just knows that's going to happen. Okay,
yeah,
right. I was taking that as she's trying to convince her to do something different than than what she
I
did
mean,
originally.
you could be right. I'm just, the line plays both ways, I think.
Like the impression I'm getting is that the realization that she has these feelings of this affair with Agnes is what's going to break up the marriage, and it's going to end badly for everyone. Not necessarily that Egon's going to murder her or anything like that, but just that sets her down a path that leads to kind of where she is before death, and she's trying to change that. That was kind of the impression I was getting, but yeah. So yeah, not too much about, but she does go to the previous plant manager and asks about, it's like, okay, you lied to me last year about what happened, the incident last summer. So let me know, and he gives her this series of results from some tests of whatever they created, and it's the God particle. This is straight up what it is, and she's getting people in the lab to test it. She has been very, she's cancelling all of her appointments. There's apparently people around to like talk to her, and she's like, cancel my appointments, reschedule it all.
The French delegation.
The French delegation. No, tell me to come back later.
Just reschedule, and her assistant's like, what the shit am I supposed to tell them?
She's come down with a slight case of leprosy. We're hoping she'll come out of it.
It doesn't give a shit about uitis. and it's German, so the long word wouldn't even seem out of place.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Hey, I've not cracked enough jokes at the language's expense.
Oh dear. Have we missed anyone? I'm never sure at the end of one of these discussions if we missed any of the
especially in an episode as scattershot as this.
The plot lines. Talked about Ulrich, talked about in present day we talked about Katharina, Hannah, Jonas, Charlotte, Noah, who's kind of jumping around. 80s we had Mikkel with Ulrich. Obviously 20s we had Adam and Jonas.
I think that is all of it.
I think that's all of it.
Talk about Claudia, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna feel like an idiot if we're missing something obvious. Like if there's characters who had a plot line.
I mean, it's bound to have happened. But...
And we talked about the kids obviously going into the past.
Yeah.
Notably, Noah was spying on them a little bit. I actually laughed a little bit the way he popped out behind the tree. It felt a little bit.
Because Elizabeth looks back like she's like sure someone's there.
Yeah.
And she has this moment and it's like, no, there's nothing. And then out he pops.
Yeah, it was kind of cartoony, but not a big deal. I'll tell you actually something from a previous episode that I forgot to bring up. I noticed it at the time because a comment mentioned you didn't talk about this, and I didn't notice it because I went aha, and I just forgot to bring it up. It was like 2 episodes ago. It was basically last season we questioned how the dog got through the door in the tunnel.
Oh yes,
and we answered this season because older Claudia was the one who opened the door.
Yeah, she was there to let through.
Yeah, I just thought it was worth mentioning since we did talk about it last season.
Yeah. Just the solving of a small mystery, but I think it was almost so small it didn't matter in the end.
It was so small that if they never answered that, I would never have really been mad at them for it. But I love the attention to detail. It's like, no, they're going to answer it.
In context of that scene, that was such a small thing, it didn't really register in my mind as we need to talk about that.
Yeah, like you thought it was a male plot hole last season, maybe if they never addressed it. But I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not whatever. So yeah, there you go. Episode 5. We're getting into Crazy Town. Honestly, young Jonas, and I loved it in all of our speculation about young Jonas can't come back to present day because middle-aged Jonas is there. We know that he never comes back, but never in our wildest theories do we go, he's going to go back to right before the show started. He's going to go back to right then, which explains the thumbnail for the next episode.
Go on.
It's middle-aged Ulrich and Hannah together, and I'm like, because we're in that time period. Yeah. It's it's right when they're still having their affairs.
Well, if you'd seen that beforehand, you'd be like, what the hell's going on there?
Is Hannah going to the 50s?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be my reaction to it, but no, interesting.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Like I say, show's gone off the deep end in a good way.
Yeah.
I think this episode was arguably one of the weaker ones in that it kind of knew last episode had the big reveal, the big moments, and this was like, okay, we're going to slow down, kind of just reestablish where people are. It felt very scattershot. Okay, we'll get everyone back together, kind of thing. Not physically, but regroup everything in your mind.
What I'm curious about is what do the kids... Well, this is the thing. Katharina is looking for the time machine and a way to go back. Her own children have a time machine and know how to use it now.
Yeah.
They presumably have it in the suitcase in the same house she's living in. So does she find that out somehow? How do those plots converge? Like, you know.
Yeah. When does Elizabeth go all badass? It's coming.
Yeah. How does that happen exactly? I don't know. But yeah, so no, we'll see. So obviously, let us know in the comments and stuff what you thought of the episode, and any small details we might have missed or theories you want to share. Let us know. You can like and subscribe, all that kind of stuff. If you want to help us out, that does help. But also, rate us on the podcast app of your choice, whatever you're using to listen to this. You can give us 5 stars on that. If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, reply, blah blah. But if you want to support us even more than that, go to Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month. And for that $1, you get bonus episodes of certain things, and you get stuff early, all that kind of stuff. So go and have a look and see that over there. And if I'm recommending other stuff for you to check out, it just so happens that we have a plethora of time travel content over the next couple of weeks. So we have a sci-fi movie podcast called The Atomic Cinema Experiment, aka The Ace. The episode that goes up publicly, probably around the time the end of this season is reviewed, will be Primer, which is notoriously one of the most confusing time travel movies ever made. So you can look forward to that. I just started reviewing season 3 of Legion, which has time travel in it, so you could check out that. What was the other thing I watched with time travel in the last few days? Oh, we do classic Twilight Zone reviews, and the episode that's coming up in a few weeks' time, the one that I recorded this week, is time travel. So
time travel everywhere right now.
Yes. Yesterday I recorded a Twilight Zone with time travel, and I recorded a Primer review. It was just time travel after time travel.
Was it yesterday we did 2 darks?
That's true. There was 2 darks yesterday, recording wise. You're right.
Yeah.
So my brain was frazzled by the end of the night. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
My brain was frazzled. So here we go. That is episode 5 of Dark. We got 3 left in the season, so we'll have episode 6 at the latest day after tomorrow, is the hope. So hopefully we'll see you then for that. But thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?